The Watchmen hype train is rolling along the tracks, and today we want to cover the comic book origins and abilities of one of the most interesting characters in DC Comics history, Jon Osterman, aka Dr. Manhattan. Side note, this video will not cover any historical events he is involved in after the events of Watchmen, but it will cover his abilities as they pertain to his complete comic book power set. Before this video starts though, we did want to thank this video's sponsor, NordVPN. Now, for those of you who don't know what a VPN is, or who Nord is, it's actually incredibly important, so listen up. A VPN, or virtual private network, encrypts and protects your internet traffic and protects your online security. Nord is an award-winning industry leader within the field of VPNs. And look, with everything happening online today, it's better to be safe than sorry. NordVPN does it all. It has a built-in ad blocker, it unlocks Netflix if you travel, protects your data, and encrypts it. Basically, Nord keeps you and your data safe from people that might want to steal it. And the best part about this sponsorship is that we're passing on major VPN savings to you. If you go to the link on screen at nordvpn.com/keyissues and use the coupon code KEYISSUES, you're going to get 70% off. Yes, that is right, 70% off, plus 2 additional months for free. For less than the cost of an energy drink, you can be safe online anywhere you go. Thanks again to NordVPN, and let's get back to the video. Jon Osterman made his comic book debut in Watchmen #1 from 1986, and for anybody who has seen the Watchmen film, the comic book origin is pretty much the same. Jon Osterman was born in 1929, and he originally planned to become a watchmaker and follow in his father's footsteps, but after the United States dropped the atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, his father decided that the profession was almost completely invalidated and instead urged Jon to follow a path of science. And after studying at some school called Princeton, which I guess is pretty good, and obtaining a PhD in atomic physics, Jon eventually started working for the government, where he met his first love and fellow physicist Janie Slater. Their work focused primarily on the fictionalized scientific element known as intrinsic fields. Jon and Janie begin to date, and one evening at an amusement park, Janie's wristwatch breaks. A bit of time later, Jon attempts to surprise Janie with a repaired wristwatch that he had worked on for her, but determined that he left it in his lab coat. However, Jon foolishly left his lab coat inside of a massive chamber designed to experiment on these fictional intrinsic fields. Jon attempts to retrieve the wristwatch, and unfortunately the generator door closes behind him, locking him in due to a security feature. The procedure began, and the team learned that this security feature could not be overridden due to the fact that the experiment was already in progress. Janie watched in horror as Jon was torn apart by the intrinsic field generator. Some guys will do anything to get out of commitment, you know what I'm saying, boys? Jon was laid to rest, but there wasn't anything left of him to lay, so they had a ceremonial service, and all of the people related to him and the incident moved on with their lives. Then some spooky things started happening around the base. In the coming days, weeks, and months, the staff of the army base started to see weird sights around the base. The base began seeing what appeared to be apparitions. First, it was a partially formed nervous system, complete with brain and eyes, then almost a full humanoid body. Jon's consciousness was attempting to reform his physical body. Then finally, on November 2nd, Jon was able to fully reform his entire body. And take a look at his massive blue head. During the events of Before Watchmen, we learn a bit more about Jon's early days as the literal god. Jon gradually becomes a pawn of the US government in a certain regard. He's given the nickname Dr. Manhattan by government scientists after the Manhattan projects that helped develop the nuclear bomb, and he's essentially treated as a nuclear power and world threat regulator and deterrent. Manhattan chooses the element of hydrogen as his symbol, and he burns it effortlessly and painlessly into his forehead. Jon's presence allows the United States to better advance as a world military might. This leads to a conflict in Vietnam that then-President Nixon personally asks Manhattan to intervene in. Manhattan, despite growing increasingly more and more withdrawn from humanity, decides to step into the conflict and almost single-handedly ends the Vietnam War. As a byproduct of this, eventually the country of Vietnam is made into a US state. This swift victory also helps Nixon overturn the 22nd Amendment and serve 5 more consecutive back-to-back terms in office. Shortly thereafter, Manhattan stops dating Janie and starts dating the second Silk Spectre, Laurie Juspezek. Now, I'm gonna rapid fire blast through the events of Watchmen as they pertain to Manhattan, kind of like a Dr. Manhattan blue lightning round. Ready? Go. Manhattan and Laurie move in together and live on an army base. Rorschach comes by and goes, "Someone killed the comedian. Wanna help me figure out who?" Manhattan's like, nah. Manhattan goes on TV, a reporter tells him that he causes cancer. He's blindsided by a bunch of people who died of cancer after being around him. Kinda rude. All this cancer talk really bums out Manhattan and he moves to Mars. Russia goes, "Oh my god, Dr. Manhattan's gone, let's invade Afghanistan." Manhattan brings Laurie to Mars and she convinces Manhattan to come back and help end the threat of nuclear war. She learns a horrifying truth about her own origin during the conversation. Manhattan views Laurie's entire existence as a miracle, which helps him reestablish his fucks given about humanity, and he comes back to Earth. Ozymandias kills 3 million people in New York City by dropping a giant telekinetic death squid into the city. This effectively ends the looming World War III on the table. Manhattan comes back, attempts to slap Ozymandias to pieces, but gets the old Uno reverse card played on him and he gets bapped himself. He reforms, talks to Ozymandias and realizes, dang, he done did it, can't go back now, better play along. Rorschach gets super mad about this and says, "I'm telling everybody," and Manhattan rips his intrinsic field out, vaporizing him. Manhattan again decides to leave Earth, leaving slamming hottie Silk Spectre behind. Manhattan's parting words to Veidt establish that he's going out into the universe to attempt to create life. When Ozymandias presses him to use his powers to tell him if he did the right thing, Manhattan tells Veidt nothing ever ends. Now that we've covered the vast majority of his comic book history, let's discuss his powers as they pertain to his Watchmen form. Dr. Manhattan is basically unable to be harmed. He can be vaporized, but this is a temporary setback and he's learned to reform his consciousness. He's nearly omnipotent within the confines of the DC universe. Mr. Mxyzptlk has stated that Manhattan's abilities far exceed his own, and he's also nearly omnipotent, so that puts Dr. Manhattan at a pretty close to omnipotent level of power. Jon is able to see his own past, present, and future clearly at all points in space-time. He is unable to change those events though, and is not able to time travel as it's normally understood. This has warped his perception of reality and led to a severe detachment from where he's actually at in space-time, perceived as a gross disinterest in humanity. He can replicate nearly unlimited copies of himself. He can teleport to any location within his awareness, including other dimensions and realities within the DC universe. He frequently uses telekinesis when working with machinery. He can seemingly create and influence life on a cosmic level. His senses are extremely honed with the ability, as he claims, to witness events so tiny and fast that they can hardly been said to have occurred at all. He is capable of firing energy projections and manipulating energy, including lightning. He can fly. He has the ability to molecularly deconstruct and reconstruct himself. He is able to alter reality as well. He states that he can create and destroy unlimited realities with the most minor effort. And lastly, the man doesn't need to eat, drink, or sleep. So basically, he has every power. So there you have it, Dr. Manhattan's history within the Watchmen universe as well as his abilities. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, then of course do all the things that YouTubers request that you do. Blah blah blah, like, subscribe, smash things, whatever, I don't remember it all. This has been Nick with Key Issues, and you know the motto, Dr. Manhattan over everything.